I'm Vanessa with Ronkita Design, and I'm partnering today with Waterloo Greenway. And this is one of the Waterloo-In-Place online event series. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to upcycle a pillow cover from a t-shirt. It's likely that you have several t-shirts that you love or have sentimental value, and you maybe just don't want to get rid of them. But in order to keep them out of the landfill and give them a new life, there's several options. So today I'm going to show you how to actually make a pillow cover. So one thing that you're going to need is you will need a pillow insert or pillow form. The list of materials is on their page, the Waterloo Greenway Facebook page, but just quickly, so you'll need a pillow form. You can use something that you already have, or you can even use one that you found at the store. So here's an example of one of the pillow covers I made. This is from an organization, Animal Trustees of Austin, where I used to work, and I love that organization. So I kept several of the t-shirts and converted into a pillow. There's also this one from an Austin local favorite, Thundercloud Subs, super fun, and one that we just couldn't get rid of because we have a lot of long-time ties to it. And here's the one that was featured on the page. This is an old t-shirt that I had when I was going to St. Edward's University, whenever in 1998. So this is one I definitely wanted to keep a hold on. So I'm sure y'all know who number 34 is. But anyway, so this is the one that I featured in the video. So you'll need a pillow form. This one's much bigger than the other sizes. I'm going to give you the information today based on a 14-inch by 14-inch pillow. However, you can make it any size you want. You can even make it a rectangle. Doesn't have to be a specific size. So that's up to you. Also, you want to double check the prints on your t-shirts. There's a couple things, and we'll talk about that. In addition to pillow covers, I've made so many things from t-shirts. Sustainability is a huge part of what we at Ronkita Design try to achieve and try to follow even in our daily lives. And this is not new. This is what we've always believed in and things we've done since I can remember. So in addition to pillow covers, I've made shorts, some little PJ shorts you can see here. I've made kids leggings, I've made dog clothes, I've made head wraps. I've made so many different things from t-shirts because essentially t-shirts are stretchy and you can do so much. You can cut them and you don't even have to finish them. They are just nice and easy, great to work with. So I hope that you will enjoy the project today. I'm going to get started. And one thing you're going to need is a t-shirt. So the t-shirt I'm going to use today is another favorite organization of mine. We donate a lot to organizations in Austin and around places that we believe in. And the Save Our Springs Alliance is an organization that we've always really believed in. So this is an old t-shirt, and I just happened to find it for the class, and I thought it was really cute because it's got the Barton Springs salamander. And then so that's going to be the front. For the back, I have this t-shirt that you can see I already cut out the front, and I used it for another project. So I'm going to use the back of it because I thought it'd be kind of fun to have a tie-dye back with just a regular print with the white on the front. So I thought it'd be kind of fun, something different. So a couple of other materials you will need is I created a template to make it easier. So you can see here, this is my front piece and this is my back piece here. So I have sketched in the seam allowance. Now, if you're new to sewing, I get it. We're trying to figure out terms and what things mean. Seam allowance is essentially the distance between your stitched line and your cut edge of fabric. So when you're making something a certain size, you have to make it bigger because when you sew it, it's going to be smaller. So oftentimes when I teach kids, and I teach a lot of kids and adults, but oftentimes a lot of my younger students like to make phone covers. And then they'll make it to the exact size of their phone, and then it's too small. So you always want to remember, add a little extra so that way you have enough room to fit everything in. Now with this pillow form, we're going to make it snug so that way it gets a nice poofy look when you're done, which is what most people like. So you'll need either a template or you don't have to have that at all. You can just have a ruler or a tape measure, whatever you use to measure. And I also suggest pins if you need them. I haven't used pins for a lot of projects in a while, but I've been sewing for a while. But pins are nice to have to keep things in order and keep it straight. Also, you will want a set of weights if you don't have pins. Weights are a nice way to actually keep things in place. So you'll see, I was given these, but these are just from like any hardware store. They're just little weights. And then you can also get washers and use them. You can reuse so much in your house. And that's really what we want to focus on. I am very firm in the belief of use what you have. I'm all in when it comes to thrift stores and reuse stores, but I fortunately don't need to do much shopping there because I have a lot and I do keep a lot of things that I like to use that are practical. So these are great. Also having a chalk marker or a pen or even a pencil to mark your lines on your fabric, that's gonna help because you wanna keep things somewhat consistent, make sure it's nice and even. So yeah, and then if you are able to, you can also use a rotary cutter and the ruler that you use with it, but we're not gonna do that today because not everybody has access to that. So, but what most people have access to are scissors. So I'm going to use my scissors today. And I also have my little snippers, which are great for sewing because then you can snip your threads when you're finished sewing rather than using these because then there's a good chance you would cut your project. Now this is from experience, I've done that. So use small scissors. And I have my sewing machine, which is out of frame. So, okay, cool. So let's get started. I'm really excited that y'all are here. I'm super excited to do this. So thank you for being patient with me. This is a lot of fun. I've been doing several online classes or virtual classes and lessons and they've gone well, but this is my first live streaming event. So I'm really excited. Okay, so here's the shirt. And this is going to be a 14 by 14 inch square. So I kind of figured that based on the size of my t-shirt because I wanted to come up to where it would actually be underneath the collar because I don't want to use the collar in it because it's a different height on different parts. However, if you have to, then you can make do, but most shirts will come down a couple of inches beneath the collar, most images on shirts. So anyway, so I have that. So this is 18 inches long. So basically what I'm going to do is just put 2 inches on, let's see here, just gonna kind of frame it in and it's 2 inches wide. So I'm just gonna do 2 inches on either side. Just gonna mark it. And if you have a marker, like a washable marker, you can use that too. It's not a big deal. Again, it's going to be cut on. So, use what you have. Don't stress out too much about it. This is, meant to be fun. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to write them in on the comments and I'll try to look up. Again, this is new for me, so hopefully I'll be able to see it. But yeah, so I think we're good. So I'm going to do 2 inches on this side. And then I'm going to measure just to get it somewhat even from here, from the bottom of Austin, which you can't see, there you go, to the top of here's 12.5 inches. So we'll just call it an even 13. So we need 1 inch on that side. So let's just round it up. It's not a big deal. So I'll do an inch. Oops. I'll do an inch underneath. And you can see here how I've placed my inch mark right underneath the bottom of the writing. So you can see that. And that's where I'm going to make my mark because, pardon me, it's a little hard with t-shirts. That's going to be my cut line. And then I'm going to go an inch above Barton Springs here because I want it to be above it. So basically I need room on either side just so it's framed a little nicer. Now, some of you may have caught that I'm basically doing let's see. So I need it to be a little bit wider. What is it here? So 13. Okay, so I'm gonna do another 1/2 inch on each side. So basically what we're doing is we're making a 14 by 14 inch piece that's cut out. And I'm drawing it here, but I'll use my pattern template for the other parts, but I wanted to show you how you would draw it on. So this is actually going to be my cut line now. And so you may have caught that it's cutting at 14 inches by 14 inches, and that contradicts what I mentioned about seam allowance. The reason we're doing this is because we want it to be tight. We want it to be puffy, if you notice the other ones. And this has stretch. So this is like the one exception. Of course, there's always a few exceptions. This is one of the exceptions to where you're cutting the same size that you want it to be when it's of your pillow form that's going in, because it's going to be a little smaller to give it a snug fit. So you can see here, there's that. My template, I'm not going to use that for now. I wanted to show y'all how to use it. But you could create a template if you needed to make it easier if you're doing multiples. So what I'm first going to do, though, to make it easier, and this is what I suggest, cut on the side of your t-shirt. Just cut up straight from the bottom, along the armpit, up to the edge of the sleeve. So basically what you're doing is you're separating your front and your back. And the reason you want to do that is just so that way you can utilize as much fabric as possible. You don't want to just cut right into both layers, because then you may not be able to actually use all those pieces, because you don't want to cut something that's not usable. So I'm just cutting this, and cut my other side. Now, t-shirts rarely have side seams these days, so you have to kind of gauge where the middle is. So do your best. I like to encourage you having fun while also following sewing rules, but don't be so hard on yourself. Sewing should be fun. It should be exciting. And remember, you can always take your stitches out and re-sew if you have to, so don't stress about it. And this project is meant to be fun, and it's very forgiving. So a beginner can do this. An advanced person can do this. Experienced sewer, anybody. It's just a lot of fun. You can do this with your kids. It's a lot of fun. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to cut my pieces. And I'm just cutting along this line here. Now, again, mentioning that the nice thing, and this is a chalk marker, so that's going to come off of my in wash because it's just chalk. So we'll have to just ignore that for now. So that was my mistake. But again, mistakes happen and we can fix them. It's not a big deal. So one thing that's really important too is when you're cutting, make sure nothing's underneath, because then you could actually accidentally cut it. And the reason I say that is you want to make sure everything's flat and nothing's folded, because you could cut, if this were folded underneath, you could cut another part that you didn't mean to. So when you're cutting, it's nice to run along the edge of the table or the top of the table using that as your guide. It kind of helps keep things smooth. And oops. And notice how I cut and rotate. I don't cut in front of me this way. I don't cut this way. When you're cutting with your right hand, you want to cut right to left. If you're left-handed, like I am, but I cut and I do things both hands. When you're left-handed and you're cutting left-handed, you want to go left to right. So it's important to remember that. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside. So here's my piece now for the front. Again, we're not going to worry about these pink lines. Those are going to come off in the wash. They're just my chalk marks. So it's not a big deal. So now I'm going to cut my back pieces. So the back of my Save Our Springs shirt actually has some information, some writing. So I could use this as the back of one of my shirts. You can see on the UT pillow that I used the back of their shirt to put my, for the top, below my little longhorn, because I thought that was fun. But I'm going to use a different t-shirt for the back. So it's not a big deal. So I'll probably save this for some other project that I want to use, because since I've already cut into it, but I will save it. These are also good projects and gifts if you get t-shirts from festivals, if you've done work retreats or something and they give you like a bunch of random t-shirts. I've made t-shirt quilts with all our Austin favorites. My husband is from Austin, so we have a lot, and I've been here for 24, 5, I don't know how many years. So we have a lot of Austin t-shirts from places that no longer are around. So it's a great way to kind of commemorate where, you know, you've been, what you've done, places you've worked, places you've lived, events you've partaken in. I also have shirts from the Peace Corps that I'd like to eventually incorporate into something. I just haven't figured out what yet, so I'm saving those. Okay, cool. So I have my back pieces, not cut out yet, but these are what I'm going to use to cut out. So I'm going to cut it in a way that will have this bottom hem as my pocket opening. So that way I don't even have to hem it. So this will actually be a nice finished edge, even though we don't have to because it's a knit, but it'll be a nice finished edge and it'll look really good. And then I'll use this piece from the back, and then I'll use this piece from the front. So these are gonna go together to form the pocket opening. So when it's like this in the back, and then it opens so you can shove your pillow inside. So I'm gonna use that. So that's also what's kind of neat is think about what you have, take a second, lay it out maybe, figure out what you want, and then figure out how you can use what you have in the best way possible. Okay, so the only difference is the back. The back piece is going to be 14 inches in one direction. It can be horizontal or vertical, but it needs to be a different size in the other direction. So I'm gonna grab another pillow to show you really quick. So let me explain that. So it needs to create a pocket. So see how there's the pocket there? So and you can also see, here's where I used the hem. So it was already there. So you can see that this is the pocket that it opens and closes, and that's what allows you to put it in. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. So, but what I need to know is, or what you need to know is your pocket opening going to be horizontal or is your pocket opening going to be vertical? It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. Some people prefer horizontal, some people prefer vertical. I really just I think I just do horizontal, but it doesn't matter. So that means since I'm going to do a horizontal opening, I need it to be 14 inches wide. But since it is cut in half, because I have two, well, half of 14 is 7, but I need room for it to overlap so that way my pillow doesn't squeeze out the back. So you're going to divide your final number by 2. So ours would be 7, and add anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. So I'm going to add 3 inches. So I'm going to cut a piece that's 10 inches by 14. So you can see here that it's going to look like this. So it's going to be more of a rectangle. So I will have a piece here, and then I'll have another piece here to form my pockets. So you have your first initial piece that's a square. That's the front, which we already cut out. And then your back pieces are rectangles to allow for overlap and openings, because the sides of your pillow are all going to be sewn up. So we need an opening to flip it, because with sewing, as most of you know, and if you don't know this and you're a beginner, not a big deal. This is something you're going to learn. We always sew everything backwards, like inside out, and it's kind of a trip, but we do so because all the stitches are on the inside. Take a second, look at your clothes, everything's on the inside, and that way you only see the nice finished edge on the outside. Now, you can choose to have stitches on the outside if you want. It's a designer's choice, but just so you're aware, mostly it's done inside out. So this is what the template would look like. And you can also see that I made notes to myself. Anytime you have a pattern piece or a template, you want to make note of things. This is a t-shirt upcycled into a pillow cover. It's the back piece, and I told myself to cut 2. And I put on here also my 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is also referred to as 4/8. Now, a lot of times this information needs to be on here so you're aware of it in case you want to do it again. The more advanced you get and the more experienced you get, you're likely not going to need this information. You'll know, but it's still important to know what it is you're making and what piece you have, because when you start sewing more projects with more pieces, you're going to end up with 10, 20 pieces of patterns, and you need to make sure that you know what it is you're making. So anyway, so this is just kind of a little insight to what you can expect. So I'm going to just cut mine, draw mine and cut it. So I'm cutting it 14 inches horizontally. So to do so, I'm going to, so I want it to be 14 inches tall. I'm sorry, 14 inches wide. So from this way. So one thing that I can do is I can actually fold my piece in half. So whenever I cut it the other direction, I can just cut it halfway of that, and we'll get to that. But I'm going to do the horizontal piece first. Actually, no, let's do this side first. So I'm going to cut 14 inches by 10. So let's cut the 10 inches first, so it'll be easier given the shreds that we already have here. So I want it to be 10 inches high. So I have my piece here, and you can't see it, but this number here, this line, is at 25. So it's right on the base of 25. So I want, since I want it 10 inches tall, I want this line to be at the 15. So I'm going to mark mine. I'm just going to mark it. I'm not going to use my rotary cutter because, again, not everybody has one. So there's my line there. And if you're worried about it shifting or moving because it's folded over, you can place a couple pins. You can also use clips if you want. Clips are nice. And then we have pattern weights. Pattern weights are more so used when you're going to be using your rotary cutter. But clips are super handy and nice to have. You can just, well, you can do that. Or you can clip your pieces together. It's kind of nice. These are also really nice if you don't want to poke holes in your fabric, if you're using like a fancy fabric or something that you don't want to poke holes in. Okay, so this is going to be 10 inches tall. And then I want it to be 14 inches wide. So I'm going to fold it. I folded it in half, and so I'm going to cut it at the 7-inch mark because it's folded in half. So 7 and 7 is 14. So I'm sure you're realizing quickly that in sewing, there's a ton of math and it's a lot of fun. So this is a great way to sharpen your math skills. If you've ever had any concerns about that, it's a lot of fun. It's really helped me a lot, and especially because you're enjoying yourself. Okay, so this line is here. This fold line is at the 14-inch mark, which you can't see, but that's what it is. So to add at 7, I'm going to mark my line at the 21. And I'm just going to cut there. Okay. And take my pins out. These magnetic pin cushions are awesome. You can have a regular pin cushion, but I like that because I can grab them. And so here's half of my piece. And it's all wrinkly. But here's half of my back pocket piece. So now I need to cut my other one. So now I have my front piece, my half of my back pocket, and now I'm going to cut my other back pocket from the front piece. Okay, so again, I'm going to fold it in half widthwise, so horizontally. Fold it in half. I want to cut from this cut edge because I want to retain this hem here. I don't want to cut this off. I mean, if you wanted to, you certainly could, but then you would lose this beautiful hem, and it would be nice to just reuse it. So again, we're going to cut it 14 inches horizontally by 10 inches tall. So this is, my hem is laying at the 24-inch mark. So I will mark at the 14-inch mark for 10 inches. It's important to use like kind of a light touch when you're using chalk markers on t-shirts because they do wrinkle and kind of move. I'm going to cut this. And now I need to have it 14 inches wide. So I'm going to cut it again on the fold at 7. This is at 14 inches here. My fold, because again, your fold line, you don't want to cut that because when you, here's your fold line, and when you open it up, you can see this is where my fold line was. That's where it connects. So you're able to basically cut faster and more precise, and it becomes symmetrical if you leave that fold line in place. It's a really nice, handy way to remember just to keep things in order, and then you have symmetry, which is really nice and really important when it comes to sewing. But again, if things are a little off and you're still learning, be kind to yourself. It's really important. I tell all my students that, just to be kind to yourself. It's important that you know you're still learning, I'm still learning, we're all still learning. So this will be good. So I'm going to cut it at the 21. It's at 14. It's because that's 7 inches again, and then finished it's going to be 14 because it's folded. Okay, so pieces that we have. You always want to take stock of what you have before you sew your project, because what if you don't have everything cut out and you thought you did? Then you'll be like, what happened? So I have, check, my front, great. Again, if you're just tuning in, disregard these chalk marks. I made a mistake, not a big deal. These will come out in the wash, so I'm not really worried about it. This is my front piece. It's going to be a solid panel. I've got my 2 back pieces. I've got my sewing machine, which is out of frame. It's threaded. It's ready to go. So I am set. All right, so let's see. All right. So, and if y'all have any questions as I'm going along, please feel free to type in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. Again, this is kind of a new thing for me doing live stream, but I'm happy to take a second to answer any questions y'all have. I've been teaching for a while and I really enjoy it, so I'm happy to help any way I can. Okay, so now we need to sew it, and you're going to be so surprised at how fast this is. It's so rewarding and super satisfying because first of all, you're saving something from the landfill, which is phenomenal. If we all did that, just made little bits of, little dents, it would make such a huge difference. And then secondly, you're also going to be able to keep something that you have and was probably stored away in a bucket because you didn't want to get rid of it for some reason because you loved it so much or it had some kind of value to you. And then you'll get to use it and you can change it out. Pillow covers are so easy to change and change the look of your home. They're great gifts. It's just great. You can make dog beds out of these. I mean, you can do really whatever you want. Okay, so here's the front piece. Now, earlier I mentioned that we sew things right sides together. Well, I actually said inside out. So to clarify, you'll hear the term right sides together all the time in sewing. There's a right side and then there's a wrong side. So it's pretty clear and evident here. So some people say wrong or pretty side and ugly side. I prefer right and wrong side because that's just my preference. So here's the right side. You can see because this is what I want to see. This is the right side of the fabric. This is the wrong side because you can't really even see what's happening. Now, it's not a big deal. I've had some students who wanted to use wrong sides of their fabric. Here's some fabric, not to our project, but just to show you. Like here's fabric here, and then the wrong side of it is just muted. And I've had students who wanted to use the muted version, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's your project, but with t-shirts, you generally are going to want to use this because that's the whole reason you're doing it. So you want to start with the right side facing up, which is your main panel. So your main panel is right side facing up, and then you're going to want to take your back pieces. And the reason I know the difference, you can say, well, what's the right and wrong side of this one? They look the same. I can determine the right and wrong side based on the hem, which I saved, remember? This hem, this is the right side. You can see that. This is the wrong side because that's the stitching. This is called a cover stitch. This is a stitch you can actually do on your own machine. But that's, for another day. But you can achieve this look that you see on professional, like store-bought t-shirts and leggings and things on your own machine, regular sewing machine. But if you choose to have the zigzag cover stitch down here exposed, totally fine. It's up to you. Some people want to have a little bit more, a little something different, and that's fine. But this is going to be the right side for me, just because that's just what I'm doing for the video. So this is the right side. Now you're going to determine, do I want my opening to be, we talked about this, vertical, or do I want it to be horizontal? It's up to you. And you can see this is definitely more than half of the height of my front panel, but that's okay. We need it to open. We need it to cover. This one I made a little too small because I didn't have a ton of extra pieces. So it's a little peeking out a little because this is a really big pillow, but it's not a big deal. Nobody sees the back on mine. So also don't fret if for some reason nothing lines up perfectly, because t-shirts are stretchy. This was wrinkled, so I kind of cut it on a wrinkle. So we'll talk about that later. So I'm going to do horizontal. And so I'm laying my piece 14 inches wide this way with my hem, the right side of my hem, facing down. So again, it's right sides together. This right side is touching this right side. There you go. And then here's my other piece. Can't forget about my other piece. This right side is my hem here. Now I want it to overlap with this other hem. The reason is because you won't be seeing any of this stitching out here. This is what you're going to see when you open it. So you want to have this really cool hem as the opening, because that's kind of the whole point of doing it this way. So make sure that you face whatever piece you want as your opening, that's your choice, to be towards the center. And they will overlap, so don't, stress about that. So what you're going to do is, this got wrinkled, so it looks like it's a little off, so I'll trim that. Let me just do that really quick because I left it folded. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap it. And here's where you would want to pin if you're not an experienced sewer, or you're still not quite confident to do this. So maybe you can do it on your own, or you need a little bit more help. If it's your first time working with knits, which are stretchy fabrics, which are t-shirts, if this is your first time, use pins. There's nothing wrong with it. Use pins, get them through, or you can use clips like we talked about. Either way, do not sew over your pins. Pins like these that we use for home sewing are not made to be sewn over. The ones that people use in production and manufacturing are smaller, and that's why they a lot of times sew over. A lot of times they don't even use pins. But I hear a lot of people say, sew over your pins. It's fine, sew over your pins. Don't sew over your pins. They can break. They can break your needle, and I just don't want anybody to get hurt. So anyway, that's just my thing. Okay, so what you're going to do when you pin, little bit of tidbit, always pin with the head of your pin, and the head is this little ball hanging off the edge. So you want to pin, I'll try and do it for the video for you. Hopefully you can see this. So here on the side where it overlaps, you can see we have 3 layers. I have flap 1, flap 2, and my front. The remaining part of the project where there's no overlap, it's just 2 layers. So you definitely want to pin where you have 3 layers, because you don't want anything to roll or crunch up while you're sewing, and I'll explain that. So when you're pinning, you want to pin with the head hanging off the edge, and I'll show you why in a moment when we get to sewing. It's just going to be easier for you in the end, and it's just a good habit to get into. I really like to teach in all of my classes and lessons good habits from the beginning, because it's so much harder if you're learning bad habits to break those. And you know, it's not a big thing. Learning something new is fine if you've already acquired some things, but you know, if you're new to sewing, these are good little tidbits to have. So just pin around a little bit more. So you don't need a ton of pins. You definitely want to pin again where there's 3 layers, because these could roll. And I don't want your pieces to get all wonky. Now knits can be a little bit tedious because they are stretchy and they move and they have a mind of their own. Everybody's a little stressed out at first to jump to knits, but you know what? Once you do them, you'll be like, why didn't I do them sooner? That was the case for me as well. It's a very common reaction. So, okay. So I think we're good on pins. So you can kind of see I've pinned around 3 to 4 pins on each side to keep things nice and in order. And then that way I'm going to sew. Now I want to sew with my pocket facing up, because if I sew with this facing down, this could roll as it's getting fed, and I don't want to end up with any weird things here. Okay, all right, so I'm going to sew now. Again, remember, we're at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So there are things you can do on your machine. You can mark it with painter's tape. You can mark your seam allowance with a magnetic seam guide. All of these things, if you're not sure what they are or what that means, send me a message. I am happy to give you links to what you may need, or images I can send to you. I can answer any questions, and I'm more than happy and always happy to do so. Okay. So I'm gonna sew. Let me see if I can do that. All right. Cool. So let's see if I can get my machine in here. I don't know if you can. Yeah, you can see one of my machines. Cool. Okay, so one thing that's important that I think you should start with is, sorry, let me move my camera back, is this is facing down, meaning like when you sew, you're going to be going this direction. So it's going to naturally push it down. So that's fine. So you're going to come around and it's going to go down. So what we should do is start, and I'm going to pin that better because that's, I don't like that. Hang on. So we're going to start here, where whenever I sew, this would move back that way, because I want to start here so I can keep that in place so it doesn't bother and doesn't flip. So I'm going to start with the troubled spot, because it's easier to start there, because then you don't make any mistakes later. And then I'm going to go around. I'm going to turn at my corner, go across. And then when I come up, it's going to automatically make this go down, because that's just the direction it's going to go. One direction goes up, one direction goes down. It's just how it works. So we're going to start again with the kind of the trouble area. If you forget when you're doing this, not a big deal. It's just kind of a good starting point. Now I just have random thread in mine. I don't have a color match. So I'm going to slide it in. And you want to keep your pin cushion nearby, because you're going to be taking your pins out as you go. Remember, you're not going to sew over your pins, I hope. So I'm going to put this in, because see how if I were to sew, this would flip over. I don't know if you can see that from here. Let me turn off the light maybe. So if I were sewing and I'm just going along, this would flip up. So I don't want that. So I'm going to just put that underneath my presser foot, which is the little thing that looks like a ski. And then I'm going to go. So I have it set to a 4/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to do my presser foot down, my needle down, my threads are back so things stay out of the way. Now you can do 2 things. You can do a zigzag stitch, which is the kind that moves left and right. A zigzag stitch is usually similar to this. These are reserved for, or not reserved, but they are more geared towards knit fabrics, stretchy fabrics, because if you think about it, they stretch. And that's the whole thing that you want. But you can do that with this particular project. I've also done it with a straight stitch. Again, this is a very forgiving project, but the thing about zigzag stitches is it moves with your fabric so things don't pop. So I'm going to do a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to change mine. Oops, move that. You never want to change your stitch selection with your needle down. So that was my mistake. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, now I'm ready to go. All right, so I'm not going to back stitch because I'm going to come around the entire thing and then literally go over my stitches that I originally started. So I am not going to back stitch. You don't have to when you're doing a full square or a circle. It's not necessary. I'm going to stop with my needle down. It's always nice to have a needle down when you're sewing. And you want to stop at your corner about a 1/2 inch away. You can mark these corner turning points if you need. And again, stopping with your needle down is super good and important because then you can just turn and pivot right away. You don't have to worry about doing anything. My thread just broke. So sometimes that happens. So all I gotta do is just take a second, change it back out. I probably need to change my needle. Honestly, I've been using this needle a little bit longer because this is these are one of my student machines that I let my students use when we're actually meeting IRL. But that'll happen again, but it's okay. So I can always go back over this again later, but for the purpose of this, we'll just start. So notice how I'm going over that second part, and it's automatically folding down. So I'm back around at the beginning. I will go over my stitches a little bit from where I started. That'll give me my locked stitch because I went over stitches and stitches. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to turn my pillow out from that center flap where we overlapped. And then I'll get a pillow form in just a second to show you what it looks like inside. So when you get in there, you want to poke your corners out with your fingers. Get it all nice and ready. That's my shirt was dirty. And there's my finished project, y'all. It's so fast and so easy. The cutting and measuring probably takes the longest part of the whole process, which is a lot of sewing. And here's my back. You can see that here's my little pocket. Now this is a process that you can use for other projects if you think pocket-wise. And then you can see in here, here's my other one. So it's gonna be a nice overlapped piece. And I think, let me get a pillow form really quick so y'all can see. So let me grab one. For the needle, that's a great question, Gwen. You want to use a jersey needle or a stretch needle. I personally prefer when people use jersey. I feel like there's ballpoint, there's universal, there's stretch, but jersey needles have always been good to me with any type of stretch fabric, any kind of knit. So I always recommend jersey needles because I feel like those are a little more universal than the others, but that's a good question. And then I usually just do like a size 12. You can do a 14 if you need to, like if that's what you have. So, okay, so I'm gonna put my pillow in. So to put it in, it's nice. It's a little easier if you just fold it in half like a taco. And we all know how to do that. And you shove it in. And then you gotta take it and shove it in. It's not the most graceful part of the project, and then just get in here and poke all your corners out so your pillow form lays nice and flat. You gotta kind of wrestle with it a little bit. But you can see the back. That's where I went in, was my pocket was here. There's the back, super rainbowy and really cute. And then here's my front. So now I have a new pillow for our couch, for our, patio, whatever it is, we're gonna use it for our bedroom, anything we wanna use. And I really love this print so much. I've been saving this for a long time. I mean, Barton Springs is definitely one of those places that every Austinite, no matter how long you've been here, loves. So, all right. So I guess this is all I've got for today. So let me move my camera back up so y'all can see me. So I just wanted to say thank y'all so much. I really wanted to thank Waterloo Greenway for the opportunity to do this. I had a great time. This was a lot of fun. So I also wanted to thank Waterloo Greenway. Sorry, someone distracted me. I wanted to thank Waterloo Greenway for the opportunity to do this. This was great, and I really enjoyed myself. It was a great opportunity. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And one thing that you do want to know, I forgot to mention this, I'm sorry, at the beginning, is that Waterloo Greenway is a really important organization in Austin. They are a local nonprofit organization and working with the city of Austin to create 35 acres of connected green space in downtown Austin along Waller Creek. It's really important and something I firmly believe in and our business firmly believes in. We are huge supporters of nature and the environment and things like that, things that are necessary for everyone, and also creating access for everybody, all types of people, all incomes of people, doesn't matter who you are. And this is a great organization. So thank y'all so much. And thanks to everybody through Waterloo that helped me get me through this. I really appreciate it. Also, we'd like to thank the Waterloo Greenway sponsors. That is BBVA, the POW Fund, the Susan Bond Foundation, Waterloo Sparkling Water, and the Word Company. And again, I am Vanessa with Ronkita Custom Sewing and Design. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I really enjoyed my time here. I am happy to answer any questions. If you want more information on my virtual classes, I also do virtual sewing machine maintenance and repair. I've guided people live online to work on their own machines since we're still sheltering in place. So if you want any of that information, just go to ronkita.biz or follow me as Ronkita Design on Facebook and Instagram. All right, thanks a lot, y'all. Bye.